Hey y'all, welcome back to Krista's Kitchen. So I have been obsessed with all things cranberry for the last 2 months pretty much. So I'm going to show y'all some of the new recipes that we've tried, or new to us recipes that we've tried using dried cranberries like craisins and fresh cranberries. So let's get into it. Up first are these Cranberry Gooey Bars, using the fresh cranberries and just these few ingredients we have right here. We have church bingo this morning, so I need to get these in the oven and cooled so that we have time to cut them before we need to leave. So let's get started. So we have our oven preheating to 350, and I've sprayed my 9x13 pan with some baking spray. And we're going to go ahead and make the bottom layer of these gooey bars. So the first thing we need down in our bowl is that package of cake mix. We need 1 stick of butter that's melted and been cooled. This is also a half a cup if you have the tub of butter. Next we have 1 egg, and we're adding in about 2 teaspoons of orange zest. Remember not to go too deep on your orange when you're zesting it so you don't get that bitter part. We're just going to mix this until it's combined. And that didn't take but just a minute. So we're going to pull this out of here and press it down to the bottom of our pan. That little bit of orange zest is really very fragrant. This cake mix made like this is kind of like a cookie texture right now. Okay, now that looks good, we're going to move on to our next layer. So using my same mixing bowl, you can wash yours if you like, but it's not going to hurt if you don't. We're going to make the yummy topping part. So we have our 8-ounce block of cream cheese. And here's that next stick of butter that we melted and cooled. Our 3 eggs. So we're going to get this mixing to get it a little bit smoother while we slowly add in our powdered sugar. So we have 3.5 cups of powdered sugar in this total, and we're going to let it mix until it's really well blended. I can see by the little chunks that I have in it that I should have softened my cream cheese a lot longer than I did. With it being cool out here, it's still, even though it's been sitting out a while, it still is too cool for really making this. But it will work. Just soften your cream cheese as long as you can before making this. But we're going to let it go another minute or so, and then we'll add in our cranberries. So now we're going to spread this over that cake base that we have. Now that we have this all mixed up, we're going to add in our 2 cups of fresh cranberries. If you have fresh cranberries, or if you have frozen cranberries, those will work fine. Just make sure you thaw them before making this. We're just going to fold this in. Look how pretty that looks already. And we're going to pour it over the top of our cake mix. And that pretty much spread itself out. So we're going to pop this in the oven and bake it at 350 for about 40 minutes. We'll keep an eye on it and start really checking it around 35. So while that bakes, we're going to make the little icing drizzle that goes on the top. Just taking a tablespoon, roughly a tablespoon, I just kind of eyeballed it, and a splash of heavy cream. And we're just going to mix this. I might have to add a little bit more powdered sugar. I was a little bit heavy-handed with the heavy cream. And if you don't have heavy cream on hand, you could use water for this too. And there we have it, our quick, simple little glaze. We're going to get the dishes washed, and I will see y'all back when the cranberries come out of the oven. So for me, this took 40 minutes to fully cook where that center was how I wanted it. So now I'm just drizzling this over the top while it's still warm. I'm going to let it cool, and we will cut into it. And there we have it. Super yummy. I love the colors. You can see the bottom got a little more done than I wanted it to. So maybe a few minutes less, but the top seemed like it needed a little bit more time. But it's nice and solid now. So maybe I could have done another minute or two under the time. just like we always say, watch your oven temp and your oven time. I might have even could have gone like 325 since I did put this in a silver pan, which tends to hold the heat a little bit more or reflect the heat. Whatever it does, it makes the bottoms get done faster. So I'm going to get the rest of this all packed up, and we're going to get out the door and head to church. First up, we need 3/4 of a cup of softened butter. You see, I sat my butter on top of a hot pan trying to get it to soften quicker, and it started melting it. So actually, first up is sugar and eggs. I'm so used to starting with butter and sugar to cream that I just dropped my butter in. So we've got our oven preheating to 350, and we're adding in 2 cups of sugar and 3 large eggs. And we are going to cream these together for about 5 to 7 minutes until it makes ribbons. Now that we've whipped this for 7 minutes, we're going to add in our 3/4 of a cup of softened butter and a teaspoon of vanilla. We're going to whisk this for another 2 minutes. Now we're going to mix in 2 cups of all-purpose flour until this is just combined. We don't want to overmix it. Dump in our 12 ounces of cranberries and just fold these into the mixture. Now that these are folded in, we're going to pour this into a greased 9x13 pan and let this bake in the oven for about 40 to 50 minutes. Again, we have it at 350. And even with no glaze, this is delicious. You could probably make like a little powdered sugar, simple glaze to put over it, but I don't think it needs it at all. This would be wonderful to have with some coffee or like a little breakfast cake. Oh my goodness, this is delicious. This is fabulous. You get all the sweetness of that sugar that's in it and still get the tartness of those cranberries. And this is so beautiful. So glad we did this. So today we're making cranberry magic bars. These are very, very, very similar to our 5-layer bars that we make, but I found this on another page when I was looking for all things cranberry. So we've got 1 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour down in our bowl. I'm going to add in 1/3 of a cup of powdered sugar or icing sugar, whichever you call it. And we've got 2 sticks of salted butter that we're going to add to this and just press through with our fork. It's super cold, so I'm trying to let it soften just a minute so it's not like frozen solid. But this is going to be the crust that we press down into the bottom of our pan. Now that we have the majority of our butter crumbed into our flour sugar mixture, I'm going to switch this bowl out. And we've got a sprayed 9x13. I'm going to dump our flour sugar butter mixture. This is, to me, kind of like a little shortbread bottom, but we're going to dump it into the bottom of our sprayed pan, and Eleanor is going to press it down into the bottom of a pan to form a crust. Now that she has this all done, we've got the oven preheated to 350. We're going to pop this in and bake it for 12 minutes. So while that bakes, we're going to prep the rest of our ingredients. The first thing that we're going to need is 1/2 cup of chopped pecans. So I have pecan halves, so I'm just going to roughly chop them. We need 2/3 of a cup of dried cranberries or craisins, whichever you call them. Next we need 1.5 cups of sweetened coconut flakes. And then we have a 12-ounce bag of dark chocolate chips. Now make sure, because some bags are 10-ounce, that you find a 12-ounce bag. So I'm just going to put this because she's using that whole bag. And our last ingredient will be a can of sweetened condensed milk. So as soon as this comes out of the oven, she will be able to build and assemble. And it's as simple as that. Okay, now that we've got our bake started on our crust, Eleanor is going to build the bottom. And I will pour the condensed milk for her, just so we make sure we get it over evenly. Now leave your oven turned on. We're going to pop this back in the oven in just a minute. It doesn't have to be perfect, but we want to make sure we get some chocolate all over.
I see.
You see it's melting already?
Yeah.
But any spots that you see don't have any, we do.
We want
It's looking pretty good.
Yeah.
All right, now sprinkle your coconut over.
Do coconut.
I know, we love coconut. I know some people don't like it, but we love it. All right, now we're gonna add on the cranberries. We wanna break up these big chunks. Make sure there's not huge chunks down in it. And after the cranberries, we're gonna add on our chopped pecans.
This looks so good.
It does. Now we're going to pour over our sweetened condensed milk. And you don't have to use the fat-free kind. I'm actually not sure if when I did a grocery pickup, they just substituted this because that's what they have. I don't usually buy the fat-free sweetened condensed milk, but it's what I have. So it's what we're going to use. Okay, so we're going to pop this back in the oven at 350 for about 18 minutes. Alright, so our cranberry magic bars are all done. We let them cool and sliced them, and this is what they look like. They probably needed to cool just a little bit more because as you can see the chocolate and everything is still pretty soft, but yummy. Alright, we're going to get to the rest of our candy making and we will see y'all later. We're making what we call Reese's. You just take some Ritz crackers, add a little bit of peanut butter, and make the little sandwiches. And then we're gonna dip them in this almond bark that we've melted and coat them in chocolate. And after you're not eating them all, after letting them set, then they will go quickly. I told y'all I've been cranberry obsessed. So today for lunch we're having our chicken salad and we added cranberries to it also. So this recipe is a little bit tough. The kids liked them at first and then after a bite or two decided they didn't like them at all. I definitely think if I made these again, instead of making them into these pinwheels, I would make like little mini tartlets so they would hold together better and just kind of, I don't know, not... It looks much darker on camera, but not caramelize the sugar quite like that to the bottom of the pan. But the kids said they were good, but they just didn't want any more of them. So a recipe like that isn't really one that I stick with and repeat too much. After just 15 minutes, this is what they look like, and they smell just the same. I did check the temperature, and they're at 170, so they are done. We're going to peel back this skin and hopefully see, because this isn't too bad, see if any of those flavors from the marinade sunk in. I get the rosemary flavor and it matches really well with the chicken, but I don't get much more than that. I'm going to temperature check this again in this spot. I did the larger 2 thighs, but just to be on the cautious side. Okay, it's still good, but that color just made me a little bit nervous, but sometimes you can get that, especially near a bone. You live and you learn. Would I make this again? No.